So, hi, I'm Mock, I'm from trbl and trbl, and today we will code something together. I hope it works out, because coding in front of a lot of people is quite scary. So I'm actually quite scared to fuck up, but it will work out, I guess. I come from Germany. I work there at Gränz, which is a company that does a lot of things. We usually are the guys you hate because you see advertising in video players, for instance. So we do this stuff. I'm sorry. Today we will draw a rectangle and we will see how we can scale it up to make it sort of a framework. So who of you has done something with JavaScript? Arms up. Oh, one guy, cool. More guys, 3 guys, 4, 5. Okay, cool. I will start right at the beginning. So I hope the people who haven't done this yet will get to know how it works. So we usually start with a blank site. And what we do is we just add the HTML tag, then we have a body tag, and then we can already use the canvas tag. So if we save this and open it in the browser, we'll see nothing. So let's add a style. As I said, it's a little bit scary and shaky hands. I hope it will pass. Maybe I should have drunk some stuff. Let's make a 3-pixel solid line, and as we will call it, to make it red. And okay. So what will this do? You should see a red border around a rectangle with nothing in it. So great. So the next thing is we just give it an ID. I mean, a lot of people who do HTML will already know this. Let's give it a name that makes sense. Let's name it Pew. And now we will start with JavaScript. It's quite easy actually. You just type script. Then you will use a variable. It's called canvas. Document. Get element document. And then we will write Pew in here. So this will get us a sort of a pointer to the canvas element. You could have used jQuery for that, but I mean, it's just this stuff. So the next thing we will do is getting the context. So who's familiar with context? Cool. The thing it does, the canvas element is like a div or an image or something, and when you get the context, it's like an API to draw on. Some people may have done QBasic back in the days, so it's actually just like getting the screen and then you have like an API to draw rectangles, circles, and all the basic stuff. There are several contexts, but one we will use today is the 2D context. So how does this work? You just use the canvas pointer, get context, and we will make it a 2D context. So some of you might have heard about WebGL and so on. This basically uses the same thing, but instead of 2D, it's just 3D, or with experimental and so on. So nice. Let's make this a little bit more pretty. And the next thing we will do is actually draw a rectangle. So what we will do, we just use the... Oh, I forgot something. We will have to set the size. It has an initial size, as you saw. So it's like this big. But we will use something like, let's declare more variables, like width. It's using HD resolution divided by 4, because we can. Then the height. So you don't have to do this, but as we will use these values later on, we just do it now. Then we set the size of the canvas element, which is quite easily done by width. And we need to... So it's already bigger now, as you can see. So the next thing is we will actually draw a rectangle. So we use the context, use fill rect, then we have to give it the x and epsilon position. Let's just do 20 and 50. And then we have to specify the width and the height. Let's use something else, like 100 and 50. So this is the basic stuff, how to do something with canvas. So you see a rectangle. So this could win the executable graphics, but we will pimp it a little bit. So at first we might want to have it in the center of the screen. So what do? We use the width of the screen we defined earlier. Subtract, let's say, diameter, something we will bring in later. So basically we're just centering the rectangle now because it's nice on the screen. Can somebody sing The Girl from Ipanema or make some waiting music? Nobody feels like it? Okay. Yeah, go on, go on. So far everyone is still with me, I guess? Okay. Some are nodding, some stare. Yes, and as I said, we also will define the diameter, which we will set to 50. And what we should see now is a centered rectangle on the screen, which is 50 pixels wide. Let's see if it does. Oh yeah, looks good. And I mean, black is a nice color if you're a metal fan, but maybe you want something more watercolorish. So let's use context, set the fill style, and actually you can set almost everything. If I set red here, it will work. You can also use like these hex colors. This will work. And you could also use RGBA, which is, yeah, let's use red again. And yeah, this is red, green, blue, and hyper. So we should see a red rectangle again. Okay, cool. Next thing is we actually want to animate the whole thing, and as we are demo coders, the only thing we need is sinus and cosinus. So let's use the diameter and use and multiply by 10. So what will we hand to Simons? Any suggestions? Arfo? Arfo? Okay, but yeah, no. We just use date.now. So what does this do? It just gives you a timestamp. I think it's from 1970 or something. And this will change over time, and you all know sinus, I hope. I really hope you know sinus. And we will multiply by 10 to make it bigger, because sinus gives us values from -1 to 1. So let's see what we did. That's quite nice. If we have somebody to press F5 all the time, we would be done. But we can do better. So let's use something like a function. You all know functions, right? It's a good player, actually. Function. Your alt function? Okay. Let's use function render. And curly braces. Let's make it neat. Need closing curves. So there we go. We're done, right? I don't know. It's not rendering it at all. So there are several ways to animate stuff. We could use setInterval, which just calls a function at the interval we specified. The interval is just like a portion of time. You can say like 500 milliseconds or every day or whatever. But for actual demo purposes, we can use request animation frame, which works like recursion. So actually the function calls itself over time. But what it does is, or what is different than using setInterval, is that when you switch tabs, it just pauses the animation. So you're not draining battery life, for instance. So let's type this out. I don't have to. How convenient. And we have to call it one time to make it call itself. And let's see. Oh, it's not moving at all. Cool. What did we do wrong? Any ideas? Nobody? Okay. Well, of course we need to change the value within the function and not define it outside. As we want to change the diameter, over time we have to, of course, set this in here. So, that only works once, as we can see. Anybody got an idea why this is? Look, but it is looking, as you can see. It's short. Maybe I can make it even shorter. You see, it's working once. So the canvas has this thing, you have to clear stuff, so you can actually see the animation, because what happens is the rectangle has this size, is growing once, and you don't see it getting smaller again. So what we will do, of course, we will make another function that basically does the same. It will draw a rectangle. But it will fill the whole screen, so we actually clear the whole canvas. Let's say function here. Here we can use the width and the height we defined earlier. This is why you define variables, because you use them again and again and again. So we will set the y value of the rectangle at 0, because in Canvas the 0 is in the upper left corner. And let's set color to any color suggestions. White. White is boring. Your coder. Let's use green. We are coders, right? We use horrible colors. Because we can. And it's not doing anything. Alright, I've got to call it. So we call it here. Nice colors. As you can see, actually, it's basically working. So this is like the minimal stuff we need. We need like a render function, call it over time again and again, and just animate something like with sinus or full sinus. So what we will do now is, let's say this is one scene we have in our demo, and let's say we want more scenes like that later on, and to make it more useful, we will use the module pattern. So this actually sounds more scary than it is. As you can see, right now we have one file. It's still the index.html. So what we will do is we will define 2 more files. So there will be demo.js, which is actually a nice party as well. Nobody got this joke again. And we will have a rectangle.js. So, how many of you know what refactoring is? So many people. 1 guy, okay. 2 guys, more guys, girls. No? Refactoring just means you clean your shit up. That's basically it. So it's a nice term for clean this stuff. So as I said, we have one index.html and we want to make it more neat. So we use these 2 functions we did. Just cut them out, put them into here. Let's leave it like that for now. And then we will copy this stuff and put it into demo.js, which is like our main file we'll use. So let's. Oh, JavaScript. Programming. We're programming. So the HTML file doesn't know where this stuff is residing yet. So what we have to do is we can reuse our script tag. We say the source of this thing is in demo.js, and the other one is in rectangle. Of course, I got this turned around because you have to be careful, as demo.js has to later know about rectangle, and if we declare them in a mixed way, it won't work. So if your code doesn't work, just use permutation. Now module pattern. So as I said, it sounds a little bit scary, but actually it isn't. Because what you can do, maybe know, is that you can declare functions and functions. So instead of calling clear here, what we could do, if we wanted to, we could just put it in here. This works with a lot of programming languages, but in JavaScript it's more of a concept. So we will define another variable. This time we will write it in uppercase, because it's some sort of a class. Is anybody doing OOP, object-oriented programming? 1 guy? More? Ah, cool, at least. So, you know, you code stuff to reuse it later. And this is what the module pattern is good for, because yeah, you can reuse it later. As you will see, you will do the following, and this is basically it. What this will do is, if you define variables, they will be in the global namespace, which is outside of everything. So if you're on this website, you will be able to get the variable from here, for instance. So this is a web console. Let's try to find a meter. Okay, this will work. Usually this does work, so yeah. Yeah, module pattern is used to pack all the variables into classes into one extra variable, so you don't pollute the whole namespace. Everyone still clear on that? Okay, some nods? Okay. If not, just ignore it, use module pattern, that's awesome. Yeah, as I said, it's actually just storing a function into rectangle, which will act as a class. And we won't be able to use any of these internal functions like clear or render unless we make them available outside. So for the OOP guys, this is actually like a private function. Same works with variables. So let's say return, and we will return a render. This is the function we will use outside. So everyone's still clear on this, what we did? See some guys looking, maybe what is this? The return statement we did is doing nothing more than using this name at the end here. So this is the internal name, you can also name it internal. We would have to change it here as well. And render is the function that will be visible outside. So we're just calling the internal function. Okay? Okay. Of course you can have more. You could hand out like the clear function as well. If you really want to clear this, you would do it like that. And yeah. So this is the module pattern. So, okay. And so what we would do now is to define another variable. Let's call it rectangle. And we would instantiate this module pattern, which would be new rectangle, which is stuff we defined right now. And we would be able to call rectangle dot render. So this would work. But we are a little bit lazy, and as we don't want multiple rectangle scenes, we just say, hey JavaScript, why don't you do it on your own? So this is actually a module pattern which instantiates itself. So at the end you see those two brackets that just calls rectangle on its own, and it's a sort of a singleton. Okay? I lost a few guys. It's like in war. Who's still with me? Bam, bam. Yeah, the thing is, we can delete this crap. And we can just render like this. So we did this quite similarly with the math function, which called sinus earlier. So I think this is pretty neat for now. So let's look what it's doing right now. It should be doing nothing and complaining. Render is not defined. So of course we will make another function. Call it render. And it should render again, maybe. So all we did was actually for nothing. That's not quite true. So let's look deeper into this. What we would have here is one of our seeds. Maybe this could be a cube, this could be array march or whatever. So we actually don't want it to call itself. We want to do it from the outside, as we want to have a sort of a framework that just calls stuff for us. So we use we cut out the window request animation frame from here and put it in our main function, which is like the one to rule them all. So here we are. And of course this will change nothing at all visibly, but what this does is we have now one render function that calls our scene. So what we could do is like do the same again or a different scene and so on. Now I actually have to look what we have to do next. Go from Ipanema again. Some waiting music, elevator music. Nobody's feeling like singing. Yeah, cool. Audio, of course, we need music. So we could do it the hard way and define our own audio library, or we could use something like Sound Manager, or we could maybe use even Flash to do the work for us. But we will just use something I did a couple of moons back. So we use this. This is actually the fun of using module pattern. You can just use your stuff and copy it over. So this is quite similarly to what we did earlier, just has more functions. Some of you might be thrown off by using the strict up here. Who of you is a Perl coder? Perl? One guy is Perl coder, cool. There was a time when Perl was like a horrible language, and it's not. And the thing is, you could do a lot of trivial errors. For instance, we have the volume here, and if I come maybe drunk late at night, I would write this, which wouldn't make sense, but it would compile. So what the strict is doing is like telling the Lexer or the thing that integrates JavaScript to be strict. And this is like one way to do it. So the whole module pattern here is strict. Just means if you start with JavaScript, look into this stuff, that helps you to throw errors, so you write better code. Okay? Lost a few guys again, cool. As I said, let's use the music. We make another file, but the first one left. This is really like, wow, someone left. It's too much of JavaScript today. And as you can see, we made another JavaScript file and called it tune, because if we named it audio, that would be a better name, but audio is actually taken by JavaScript. But JavaScript, as you know, or actually browsers, are fun to use because every browser throws its own errors. So one thing we noticed is that, for instance, Safari can't play OGG files, it uses MP3. And to test this, you can ask for the codec on the audio element, and it returns probably for everyone else. So Chrome is returning probably, Firefox is returning probably, I can play this. So you check for this, and then you set the coding file. So that's why we use a predefined function to play audio, because it's actually too nice to do it on your own. So use libraries, of course. What we have to do is declare it again. So let's say it's a tune, and we are now able to play music by, let's say here, we define another variable, call it tune, to keep it consistent. This time we instantiate the thing, because it would make sense to have multiple audio elements. For instance, if you're doing a game or whatever, you might want to have several audio elements. And I'm typing bullshit here, it doesn't matter. Tune. As I said, this is an own creation, so you don't have to learn this, it's just how this library works. So we call it create. And now I have to remember the title of the tune that a friend of mine did. That was the, I think it was this, but I'm actually not sure. Almost. This. Then we say tune play, and we are close to having a winner demo. And you are back. Cool. So it's not too much JavaScript for the day. So where have you been right now? For the video? Ah, okay. I'm not sure if I should tell you what he told me right now. So actually we should be able to make noise now. And I think this demo is quite awesome. We could just leave it there. It's like a rectangle. We could put meaning into it. It's like a field of grass with a firefighter jumping up and down to music coming from a nearby disco. Cool spot, man. So what will we do? Actually, having one scene is rather boring, so we make another one. So how do we do this? Quite easily, because we have sort of defined an API for ourselves. So render is something we will use for every scene. Clear is something we can delete, but we kept it for the guy who is writing down the source code. He can later download from GitHub. He's not noticing, doesn't matter. Write down code quickly. What? Yeah, I meant the guy in front of you. Yeah, let's make another class. Let's call it circle. As I told, you can later download the source code, so you don't have to write along. It won't work on a Mac anyway. I made his own rectangle. Ooh. So we have a circle, because circles are also fun. So circles aren't as easy as making a rectangle, so it's not like circle. No, we have to do the hard way. So what we actually will dive into now is paths. So how does paths work? We use our context, say begin path, then we can leave it there, and then we will say arc. Of course, this draws a circle. So we can keep the width and the height stuff, which defines again our x and y position of the circle. We have to change something here, because arc actually allows you to draw parts of circles. So we have to define the beginning angle, which is 0, and we want to draw it for net pi 2. Of course, this makes sense to everybody, right? This is the stuff you just look up, because you will forget how to use it. Then we declare diameter. So anybody finds a typo, you can just yell into it. No typos found. Okay. Context. Let's. Why do I always say clear? It's weird. And let's close the path. Close path, and nothing because we have to fill our shape, which is done by, I think, I'm actually not even sure. Fill path, I will find out. Oh. Caps lock. One of the friends on keyboard, on laptop keyboards. Because the key is also small. Okay, fill path. Doesn't look like it's a known function, so we will see if this works. It won't work at all because it didn't change its name. It's always clear. Circular. So, as we said, we write this module patterns because it's easy to change them. So what we have to do is, of course, just circle. And we also have to make it available here. So for guys who know JavaScript a little bit better, there are several things to pack or to combine all these scripts here into one file. One cool idea is grunt. It's spelled like this. Maybe the guy with the Mac will pick it up. Do you know grunt? Ah, you don't right now. Okay, so then what? Okay, just was a hint. We should see a circle. For debugging stuff, you can also not play this now because you would hear. Actually, it's a quite awesome song. It's like calling your friend in 2 AM in the morning. Hey, I need something that's like 7 seconds long, and the friend's like, oh, look, take this. Okay. So this is the music video. Yeah, circle isn't circling. Why isn't it? It has no method file path. Of course it hasn't. So I think it's just fill. Or does anybody know what it is? No? Oh. Still doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Oh. So we got to here without any major errors. Let's see. We have circle render. You think so? But isn't it diameter? Actually, let's cheat a little bit. We will totally cheat right now and use this stuff where it works. And we will find out why it works when I open this thing. You're right. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You just left. You were like, I know all this shit. It's boring. So this is 5.1. Actually, I was preparing for typoing a lot. Actually, use this to bear with me. Go from the Panima again. Anybody? So, thank you. Yeah, applause for whoever did this. Girl from Ipanema, everyone. This is Girl from Ipanema. Yeah, so circle works. We have different colors because I was thinking to use better colors yesterday. Yeah, so what this actually does is, a little bit more than I thought. Yeah, we did one scene, which was the rectangle. We put it into a module pattern, which you all saw, and then we just copied the whole thing, named it circle, and drew a circle. So, okay, clear everyone? So we have two scenes, a rectangle and a circle, and we play music if we want to, and we also render it. So what is missing from there is actually a quite big one. It's prepared already here for the ones who paid attention. It's tune position. So what could this be? We actually don't want to bind our demo to, let's see, it wasn't here. So what we actually don't want to use is date now. We don't want to use it because it's not tied at all to the music. It would just go on forever and forever. We couldn't play it backwards or anything. So what you have to use when you do demos, especially in JavaScript, it's easier than other languages. Just use the time of the audio element. So once again, this is something my library does. In actual JavaScript, I think it was current position. Yeah, so what this does is it calls our circle, the render function we defined there, which is in this file, and handling a parameter, which is time. And then we just use, instead of date.now, we use time. And everyone clear on this? Why we do this and what it is? Somebody said, okay, it's okay, apparently. Yeah, so the thing is, actually lied a little bit because tune play just doesn't work this way. Tune play actually needs to load the file first, and the browser responds, I could play it now if you want to, and then it actually would start to play. So what we have to do is like declaring a callback. Who does know what a callback is? How callback function? One guy, two guy, three guy, four guy, five guy, guy. Ah, he laughed, okay. Let's say, for the guys who do jQuery, you would define events. You also do this with .on, and this is actually the same. It's just a function that is called when something happens, and yeah, so this is a callback. Hi. That's too much JavaScript again, I guess. I can't handle this. But it's nice that you're still here, actually. I'm happy. Also, if you didn't have me with the circle at all, you're like, this guy will fail with the diameter, and I know the answer. So let's call it play, and we will define a function that is called when the tune is ready to be played. So let's call this, do we have a suggestion for a name? You don't feel like it? You only know diameters. Okay, let's call it start audio. And this is a function we will have to define. Start audio. And now you don't have to start the music. It's not taking that long. And it would do the same. Maybe, maybe not. Do you have an idea why it's not working? Now you don't speak with me? Maybe I got the callback function wrong. No, it is bad. Maybe we shouldn't play the audio when we call play. Yeah, once again, what this does is we define a callback function on the event play and then call start audio. Tune.play actually plays at some point, which we don't know, but when it plays, it will call start audio. Alright? So this is actually something you only have to know for the purposes of using something I will show later. And it should make the music again. Okay. So this is a nice demo, isn't it? It's like the Japanese flag, but indifferent. So I have to look up what we have to do next. Alright. As I said earlier, we have to use the position of the audio. This is somewhat correct, but if you know music, you probably also know that you use rows and BPM and all these crazy words. So actually a tracker looks a little bit like this. Looks scary, doesn't it? And what this does is, as you can see, it looks a little bit like an Excel table. So you have like one row and you define your instruments and so on. You have several tracks of it. So if you want to use the second position, or the position in seconds on this tune, it would be a little bit hard because the first beat might be on 251 milliseconds and the second will be on 800 and whatever. So this would be a lot of weird milliseconds which we can actually just forget and use something that is called rows. Anybody understood this? It doesn't matter, just use rows, ignore everything that was done before. Don't use date now, don't use something else, just use rows. So, as I don't want to type this out, as we're getting close to the full hour, let's use, I think I have this here. I'm not sure, maybe I also did it, no I didn't. Oh god, I have to type this out. It's going to be horrible. That's the fun thing, that you make a concept how to explain something and then you just don't follow it. You explain stuff earlier, later, and so on. So just ignore what's on the screen. Nothing of this exists yet. You can sing along if you want to. I'm not holding you back. No. So we copy this. Nobody saw it, right? Not even you. So what does this code do? We define our BPM. Who doesn't know what BPM does or means? One guy, two guys. Okay, it's just beats per minute. So if you have like a techno song, it's a lot of beats per minute. It's like zoom, 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 zoom. And every one of these is now you're laughing. There was this guy who's sitting there. He can do really awesome beatboxing, actually. But he's muted right now. So yeah, that's BPM. That's like the beats per minute. Right here, it's I think 174. It could be less, it could be more. Just ask your musician or whoever does the music. So rows per beat is just a resolution to work on later. Just keep in mind, like if you use seconds, you have like milliseconds and so on. And if you work on a beat, you have also like minor beats and so on. So let's say it's whatever this is 8 right now. And then we have to find a row rate, which is just a constant, and yeah, we just do I actually don't know the English word for it. In German it's called Dreisatz. Okay. It's like a mathematical term. Translated, it would be 3 sentences. Doesn't make sense either, so yeah. Yeah, as we defined it, we use the tune position, and to get our rows there, we just multiply it by the row rate. So what does this do? Actually, nothing much. But instead of working on actual seconds, we are now working on rows, which is more awesome and faster. Yeah, it's it's faster, but the thing is, we are really tied to the grid the musician uses. So instead of having like being in between 0 and 1 in milliseconds, we are now based on the first row, on the second row, and so on. So this is actually more nice than using seconds. This is really, really important because I got this wrong as well in the beginning. So for instance, if you want to, whatever this is, lugubre, nice wearing headphones. Anyone? Doesn't matter. As we're running out of time. Oh no. Yeah. So as I said, use rows because you're tied to the grid that the musician is using. So to gain a little bit of time, I will tell you that the rows are alive and we don't know them yet. So in my actual plan, I didn't. I wanted to explain the row concept a little bit later. So just ignore that it's still missing this here. So what does this actually do? As we made two scenes, a rectangle and a circle, we actually also want to use them both. So what we could do is like putting them into an array, which would look. Oh, actually, yeah, different. So the first demo I did was like a construct of if, else to kill or to line up the different scenes. So you use like the position of the audio. We would use rows because we know of them yet already, and then we would say like everything that is before 3 seconds is our rectangle scene, everything that lies between 3 and 5 seconds is our circle scene, and after that we are just calling our rectangle scene. Does this make sense somehow for you guys? We're just deciding which scene to show, and I'm explaining what possibilities are there. So as I said, there are multiple possibilities. The one that is used the most is this if-else conditional. It's actually, it gets tedious the more scenes you have, because you would end up like having 200 lines. So we will use something else instead. We make it totally easy. We just put our two scenes into an array. That doesn't give us the possibility to show them one by one, just after each other, but we don't care, we want to keep it simple right now. So what this does, everybody remembers our render function, right? We use the position, we would use rows again, and we would define the scene index, because as I said, we can put stuff into arrays, and we would, in this case, the scene index is set to 0, so we would play the rectangle scene, right? Everyone still with me a little bit? I just have to speed it up a little bit as we are just having 6 minutes left. So yeah, this is one concept, and the other concept you could use is building your own scene list manager, and this could look a little bit like this. So this is for the guys who did JavaScript already. So what you would do is define in module pattern again an array, then you would define your add function, and on this add function you would pass 3 parameters like your scene name, which would be circle or rectangle. After that you would define your start time, end time, and you would just put it into an array. Basically the same thing we did before, where we defined it on our own, and then instead calling render on the scene itself, we would call render on the scene list, which would just check, as long as the scene is length, if it's about time to play this actual scene. Okay? So this is just something you could use later on. Good. So, as we have audio, a rectangle, a circle, and doing stuff on rows, it's about time we to the game. So, who of you has used Rocket before? Any C++ or C coders? So, nobody used Rocket before. So, Rocket is a tool which looks a little bit like Excel or like the tracker you saw earlier in the screenshot. So, it gives you the possibility to drive around in your demo, and this will make it easier to sync stuff to your audio, for instance, which was the whole reason we did this weird thing with the rows. So hooking up Rocket is actually somewhat easy. You would start by refactoring again, so we would put all of our initialization code into here. Once again, we use the simple way of putting it into an array. Then we have a function that does nothing more than initializing the audio. There's our callback function that is being called when our tune is being played. And there's our render function. So it rather looks normal, instead of this part which we did earlier before. So we would start by, of course, bringing the rows again. Explain it like 5 times now, it's cool. Maybe somebody will remember it. And yeah, as I said, we are now in a state where we have 2 scenes and everything is actually quite neatly picked up for us. So bring Rocket into it. As I said, it's just another library, and it also has its own functions that we have to hook up, which are 4 functions. 4 of them are callback methods again. So, as I said, Rocket is a tool that connects to our demo and makes it able to pause our demo, to change stuff on the fly, and so on. We have to hook its API up. It will call a ready function when it's connected to our demo. It will call an update function when we are updating something within Rocket. And it will tell our demo to play or pause demo. Alright, super. As I said, I have to speed it up again because we only have 2 minutes left. Yeah, minute audio, blah, blah, blah. Explain this later. Actually, I want to explain you how this works. There's the cancel R here. As I said, we define our loop. Like here, you all remember the request animation frame? It's more visible than on my screen actually. And this also returns something, so it's a little bit like set interval, which returns a pointer to the interval, which we can clear later. And this is exactly what we will do on pause, because we have to be able to cancel the whole render loop at some point, because it would render over and over again. So when the demo is done, for instance, we have to clear it somehow. So this is what cancel animation provides us as function. This is called, when we call pause from the outside. Oh, we're over the time already. So let's just make it easy and see how this all looks like when it's in place. There's nothing pause. Actually, this time it's not really a bug, it's a feature. So it's actually rather nice. This is like the second seminar I give, and also the second one where I want to explain Rocket a little bit, and I didn't manage to actually do it. So I think I will have to do actual JS Rocket seminar at some point. This is broken. Nice. Let's use this instead. So, as I said, on the left you have rocket. It's also in the title bar, so yeah, not really a surprise. And what this is able to do is to control your demo on the right. Right now it's black because we hooked up several things. We hooked up the background color, the color of the circle, the color of the rectangle. We hooked up which scene to pick. This is the reason why we put them into an array, and we can now change all these values, which I didn't prepare. So bear with me. Alpha is 1. So it's already red, which is good. Diameter, let's set it to 50. Let's say something darker. 90. So there, once again, is our rectangle. And what Rocket is able to do is we can change stuff on the fly. So as we see, nothing is being changed. But maybe we want to make it more transparent over time, so we set 0 in whatever row, then we press I, and as you can see, it's a version from yesterday. That still has the bug, that shouldn't be there. And let's say we want to change the diameter. Let's say it's 10. So this is really fucking convenient, because you can give this tool to your musician or graphician, and they can change stuff here. And the best thing is you can like play this thing, look where the beat is, and yeah, let's say it's 90 and it should be big. You know, this stuff to sync on the beat, on the beat. Yeah, so questions? I confused everyone, cool. And he's still here. Any questions so far? So the question was if this is only working in Chrome. It does work in Opera, in Firefox, and in Chrome. I'm not sure about Safari because I don't actually use it. So Rocket is speaking to Chrome via WebSockets. So everything that has something of a WebSocket thing should work. One thing you could actually do is like use your Android phone or iPhone and open this website and you can control it from the outside. So yeah, that's convenient. Any more questions? Ah, come on, you have questions. You're looking like, I want to pose this question, but no question? Not even you? He's preparing to leave, actually. He has enough JavaScript in there. Okay, so this is it. So I hope you learned something. If not, just come outside with me and have a talk. So, thanks.
So this was the 2 seminars of the day, and we're going to have a bit of a pause, and then at 6 we'll start with the music competition.